Look forward to that. The G7 used to be the G8. Barack Obama and a person named Trudeau didn't want to have Russia in. And I would say that that was a mistake, because I think you wouldn't have a war right now if you had Russia in. And you wouldn't have a war right now if Trump were president 4 years ago. But it didn't work out that way. But it used to be the G8, and now it's, I guess, what's that, 9 years ago, 8 years ago, it switched over. They threw Russia out, which I claimed was a very big mistake. Even though I wasn't in politics then, I was very loud about it. It was a mistake in that you spend so much time talking about Russia, and he's no longer at the table. So it makes life more complicated. But you wouldn't have had the war. Other than that, I think we're going to accomplish a lot.
View that it is President Trump's wish that this end quickly. He still believes that he can get the Iranians to the table. And I think from his point of view, he's doing a little bit of a good cop, bad cop thing with Israel, to where they are taking on the Iranian nuclear sites militarily. And he wishes for the United States to stay out of the offensive military side of that, of course, bolstering Israel defensively as our greatest ally in the region. And I think he's hoping that the Iranians will feel that they really have nowhere left to turn at this point and still make a deal with him. President Trump hates war. He fundamentally believes that people would prefer peace and prefer a peace deal. And so to me, that's what I'm looking to see. Can the United States convince the Iranians, perhaps even through Vladimir Putin, who President Trump had a good conversation with yesterday, to come to the table and make a deal to bring an end to the horror of war as soon as possible?
What's going on, everyone? It's also Kenny here today, and I want to kind of talk about this whole, situation that's going on with Donald Trump. There's most likely, many people are scared of a direct war with Iran, and I think that from the intro, I think that's Salamat, like the way that Batia kind of explained things. I think that's the most probable outcome, that Donald Trump is just going to keep supplying Israel with weapons, American-made weapons, and they're going to keep attacking and say Israel is going to do what they need to do. And Iraq has Iran has a choice to make. Either you comply, make a peace deal, or not. But I don't think it's likely Iran's going to come to the table. And one of the reasons I believe that is because look at North Korea. That's what Iran is trying to be. Iran is trying to be North Korea. Because right now, Iran looks like a paper tiger. Iran looks like they can't do anything for itself. And they're saying they're not pursuing nukes. And for the longest time, Netanyahu has been wanting this war for a long time. I already explained you the history of it. If you haven't watched my previous video about Trump threatening the conflicts between Israel and America itself, and how that we have broader interests while Israel has a more narrow interest, and they conflict often. And I just think that this is not something that Americans don't really have an appetite for. And I think some of the problems that I've been seeing online is that you got a lot of these people who, I don't know, they got foreign people in their mind. I don't know. Americans have this problem with foreigners trying to tell us who our enemies are, who is our threat. First, it's going to be Tel Aviv, then New York. By the time a nuke hits Tel Aviv, a nuke is already heading to Iran. Because at the end of the day, you attack an ally. We're not going to sit there like you nuke Israel and not do anything in response. And this is where I'm talking about us getting dragged into a war. And some people differ, right? Trump came out against Tucker Carlson, call him a kooky, and say, hey, Iran can't have nuclear capabilities. Okay, fine. But y'all been saying this for what, 1964? Since 1964, y'all been saying these people can't have nuclear capabilities. Can you truly stop them from getting nuclear capabilities? This is the kind of sentiment that many Americans believe. If it's a quick and decisive war where, hey, we end it, but some people think, yo, just tell us the truth. Is it a regime change you're trying to do or not? Because how do you stop a country from pursuing nukes? Like, even if they sign a peace deal, this is just my thinking. Let me know if you guys think differently in the comment section. But this is just my thinking. If since 1964 you've been worried about this country developing nukes, then the only thing that makes sense is regime change. That's the only thing that makes sense to prevent Iran from creating a nuclear weapon that can be used against the world, right? So just be honest with the American people. We can handle it. We can handle the truth and say, hey, look, Um, we can't reason with these people. Regime change, fine. But the fact that y'all doing this all, good cop, bad cop, knowing damn well, like based on the track record of Iran, they're not going to go through it. It seems like a way to justify war. And I think the endless war, the making, hey, we need to have a constant presence because it always happens. The minute we remove our presence from the region, it go right back to where it was before. It may even come back even worse. And I think that's something that Americans are just tired of seeing, that cycle of, oh, the Bush administration. We come in, regime change. The minute we leave, it go right back to where it was before. And a lot of American tax dollars, sometimes American lives were lost for nothing, just for it to come back even worse. And I think Americans are just tired of the cycle. I don't know what the right answer is. I don't think anyone knows what the right answer is. But I do think that, I voted for Donald Trump. Some people are wishy washy. They love Trump, now they hate Trump. And me, I'm just always been even kill. Any day I voted for the guy. We'll see where he takes this. But I think that Trump is in every possible way trying to make peace. And I have to give him credit for that. Hey, look, I know there's a complex situation. I don't even know what I would have done if I was in his position. You got all these people in your ear telling you how dangerous this country is. It's kind of hard thing to break because like end of the day, you don't know if a country like that get nukes. No one really knows what they're gonna do with it. Some say that, hey, Iran is just trying to get political leverage so that way they can be treated with some respect because they've been disrespected uh, throughout the years. Netanyahu, they assassinated some of their military people. The precise precision strikes that they make, like it hurts their image, right? And they're just trying to do whatever, right? But at the same time, you like you don't know. The most unpredictable element in all this is humans, and we don't know how the Iranians will react if they have nukes. And I think that is what's driving U.S. involvement in that case. But I digress. I think I want to play this clip with Charlie Kirk, who's been an avid defender of Donald Trump. I think it'll be fair to hear him out, and then I'll play a clip from Tucker Carlson's show to kind of give a perspective of some Americans that have a concern over this whole foreign involvement. Let's take a look.
Some people on the right, they're saying don't forget about Iraq. How are you reconciling these issues?
Well, first, this is the moment that President Trump was elected for. Thank God that we have President Trump in the Oval Office with this high stakes situation. Look, President Trump 10 years ago, he went down the golden escalator. And when he announced for the presidency 10 years ago to this day, he remade the Republican Party on foreign policy. He said no more permanent wars in the Middle East. He criticized the Bush-Cheney philosophy of endless quagmires. Albeit, though, he is not an isolationist. He is willing to use violent and precise force against our enemies, like taking out Soleimani or dropping the Moab, if and when necessary. President Trump understands his base extraordinarily well. He knows that his base does not want another Iraq. He does not want Libya, does not want a civil war or bedlam where the United States is left carrying the bag. But also, President Trump has been morally clear for a decade. Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. And President Trump has the talent, the expertise to be able to thread that needle. The generation that I represent, Jesse, the under 30 crowd, they absolutely are very war weary. Many of them voted for President Trump on college campuses because they did not want to see a Joe Biden or George Bush philosophy where we get into this endless conflict where we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars. I think President Trump will be able to balance those two things while defending our allies, saying that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon without having to deploy a single American troop or even having America involved from the sky. President Trump can get that deal done while fulfilling the mandate that the voters gave him.
Before I continue my commentary, this is what I love about being part of the right, honestly, is that, so much food for discussions. We're all on the same side, but, many people have a different approach of how President Trump should move. And I think Charlie Kirk is correct when he says that Donald Trump really does understand his base. I think he does. I think he understands, like I told you, I'm very war weary. I don't want this endless quagmire. We're stuck and then we're still, I'm like, damn, we had this word a year ago and we're still dealing with it. I don't want that going on here. I think that's why I said, like, realistically, this seems like the middle ground. Arm Israel. Israel do all the attacking. Good cop, bad cop, as Batia explained. And I think that's going to be Trump's strategy moving forward for a while now. But the forever war is kind of like we're going to be financing it. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, I recognize I'm not even an isolationist, but I recognize that in some cases you need to be involved. Like Trump, and he outlined how Trump was dropping Soleimani and Moab, and I understand all that. But it's like we want quickness. We don't want this to drag on. I think that's the biggest point I'm trying to make. And it goes back to my critique. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Why? Right? I already told you, I already know the case. Some people are going to say, Kenny, you know why? If you let Iran get the nukes, they'll terrorize the world with it. Maybe. Because it's mutually assured destruction. We all understand that principle. That, hey, if I launch nukes, I'm not going to be allowed to see those nukes land on the other side of the world. Like, it does not make sense logically. But, people make the claim that, hey, a lot of these people the people that run Iran, they're not very logical, right? And this is one of the biggest kind of statements that's backing up Israel's claim that, hey, if you let these radical people get nukes, they'll use it in a radical way. But what if you're wrong? The end of the day, all those are just assumptions. Now, you can say, oh, look at the track record, look at all these missiles they're launching, but that's because they don't have nukes. You have nukes. Israel has nukes. So them launching attacks are like, yo, we're just trying to like show face, save face. Because right now, to me, Iran seems like a paper tiger. It seems like they're not really a real legitimate threat. Yet we're still so worried about them getting nuclear capabilities. And I think that the most reasonable outcome, or some of the critiques that I think the anti-involvement side is saying, is that if you look at North Korea, you can say that North Korea is just as radical as Iran, maybe even less than Iran, maybe. But Korea is like left to their own devices. And I think that's the kind of some of the sentiments that the Tucker Carlsons of the world are expressing. And I want to give up them a spotlight here as well, because I believe in balance. I believe in having a balanced perspective. You can have your biases, you can have your preferences. I don't really care about that. But information we shouldn't be walling off information if it can help us make better decisions. And that's always been my philosophy. So let's take a look at this guy. He's a colonel, I believe. I don't remember his name at the top of my head right now. But here's a statement he made in Tucker Carlson. And I think it's a valuable kind of information to keep in the back of your mind, to be aware of some of the skepticisms of Donald Trump's approach. Let's take a look.
And Zelensky, frankly, the way he was treated, I think President Trump was far too gentle. I'm surprised that two giant Secret Service agents did not come in, pick him up, and remove him from the office. But the way he handled Zelensky is the way he's got to handle Netanyahu. Because if he doesn't, Netanyahu will drag him into the abyss. Because he wants this war in the Middle East come hell or high water. And it's not in their interest.
What war?
The war with Iran, the war with everybody. I mean, you've seen these settings where Netanyahu sits at a table and he's got everybody around him in his cabinet. And he says, this is our opportunity to settle with everyone. We're fighting on 5 fronts. No, we're fighting on 7 fronts. And he starts ticking off, everyone from the Houthis to the militias in Iraq and Syria and now Iran and so forth. If you look at the map today, he's trying to occupy Syria all the way up to the edge of Damascus. And Erdogan, who is a very clever but slippery character, has already said, forget it. We're not going to tolerate that in southern Syria. So he's pushing the envelope to the very edge. In Damascus, there are 3 great Islamic cities in the region. One is Cairo, the other is Jerusalem, and then Damascus. They're not going to surrender Damascus to the Israelis. So whatever happens, the Turks will eventually become involved. They'll march in.
So, I mean, that creates a kind of structural problem because Turkey is a member of NATO.
I don't think so, because I don't think NATO matters.
Maybe you're right.
I don't think it has for a long time.
Why? Well, it matters in a material sense. We just use the name NATO to wage a war against Russia for 3 years that we lost.
Yeah.
So, but that would be the end of NATO, right?
Well, if what we're talking about will end everything that we're accustomed to, the rules-based order, which just means our global hegemony in military and economic terms. Everyone in BRICS is now being forced together. We're forcing
This is complicated stuff. I don't pretend to know everything and all the things. I'm just telling you my instincts on this stuff. And one thing I kind of held on to that is the restrict Israel, right? That, we're kind of giving Israel like room to operate, but at the same time, this is some of the concerns some Americans have. And I don't like this idea. Like some people try to pigeonhole Tucker Carlson. Right. It's the same way. I don't know why I'm so sympathetic to these characters, but like Jesse Lee Peterson, if everyone knows who Jesse Lee Peterson is, I did a lot of reaction channels to him. He's funny as hell. But I feel like Tucker Carlson is misunderstood by a lot of people. I think what he's seeing is that, hey, we don't want to be pulled into something that wasn't necessarily true, right? And the political interest of Israel or Netanyahu specifically, is not really Israel, it's Netanyahu who's running Israel, is that he's trying to push the envelope. He's trying to see what he can get away with. And I think what you're hearing from the Tucker Carlsons of the world is that they want Trump to be a little bit more forceful with Netanyahu. They feel like they gave Netanyahu everything he want, but look how we treated Zelensky. Pretty much, people want to treat Netanyahu the exact same way that Trump has been treating Zelensky. Hey, we need to make peace with these people. We're going to force you to do things in the interest of creating that peace deal. We'll take your weapons away. We'll do all this stuff. And I think that's the stance many people, or kind of the posture that they want Trump to take on Netanyahu. I don't know if it's going to happen, though, because, Netanyahu is a big, aligned with Trump. Right, when Trump put out those reciprocal tariffs, Israel was some of the first people to drop them. And then also the same side also mentioned out, how is Israel giving us tariffs when we pretty much fund a lot of their military, a lot of their operation? I don't know how this stuff works, bro. I just know that Israel had tariffs on the U.S. and Trump said reciprocal tariffs, and Israel was the first one to drop it. And these are the kind of political actions that Israel has been making to pretty much ingratiate itself with Trump. And it worked. And this is why I think you've seen the position that Trump is taking. And this is why I'm saying, that's why I put that video out, that Trump is threading a needle here. Is that he knows that if he plays this wrong, and I agree with Charlie Kirk. I think I do trust Donald Trump. I voted for the man. I mean, if you vote for someone you don't trust, then you're just an idiot. But end of the day, we'll see. I think I have to give this time. We have to give this time to play out. I know a lot of people are making clickbait videos about, oh my God, we're going to be dragged into World War III. No. I don't think so. Like you see, Israel just dismantled Iran. How are we going to get pulled into a World War III? But I understand the game. But I honestly think that this is the more likely scenario. Israel keeps attacking. Trump resupplies them with weapons, fuel, and ammunition. And in the background, he's like, hey, look, you're getting slaughtered. You don't have the cards, Iran. Might as well come to me. I think this is the game they're playing. And I think realistically, based on the actions that I'm seeing, I think this is the most probable outcome. But I just made you aware of some of the sentiments of other people on my side that don't see it the same way that I kind of see it. But I digress. I want to play these last few minutes from this clip, and I think it gives a more highlight exactly what's going to happen for the most part. This is just what I believe to be the most probable outcome. I could be wrong the minute I drop this video. Who knows? But let's get into the clip.
Horror of war as soon as possible. I think President Trump is doing a masterful job, not just of navigating this pro-Israel but America first lane, but also of using the media in order to signal to the Iranians where he is at. So, for example, there was a report that the U.S. had vetoed an Israeli assassination of the Ayatollah Khomeini, the Iran's supreme leader. Now, that was then disputed in the news. The Americans said that's not accurate. Netanyahu said that's not accurate. But what that does is show you how they are using the media to convey to Iran, look, our preferred way to end this is quickly and through peaceful means to get a deal on the table, but we are not going to be afraid of assisting our ally in making the United States as safe as possible, which involves, of course, ensuring that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. That's how the Trump administration...
Yeah, that's the justification, right? So we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. I think we'll wait a few days. I think this is where I'm at technically. Like, I don't have a hard position. Oh, we should never help them. We should help them. I'm like, let's do it as efficiently as we can to get whatever outcome we need, right? We'll take a short term hit for a long term payoff. But I have this, I don't know why. I don't know if it's a gut feeling. I don't know what you want to call it. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. But I just feel like it's not gonna turn out the way that I think it's gonna turn out. Right? Well, we're gonna sign off with a peace deal. I don't know. Because the only way I could see this happening is that you doing regime change. That's the only way I see that Iran will no longer pursue nuclear warfare, right? Because they won't have a reason to, because there's a new regime in there. And to maintain that new regime, you need to be in this country at least another what, 5, 10 years maybe. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I could be wrong because I admit foreign policy isn't really my thing. I like domestic. I like to focus on my problems. I don't like to focus on everyone else's problems. But when other people make something your problem, you have to learn how to deal with it. So this is the situation we find ourselves in as a movement. Let me know your thoughts and perspective in the comments below. I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to say. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video if you feel so inclined. It really does help me out in the algorithm, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.